Hi everybody, this is Laura, City Scrapper. Thank you so much for joining me on my channel today. Today I have a layout that I made for Mixed Media Mayhem. And before I continue, I just wanted to say happy birthday to my sister Marie. She watches all of my videos and comments on them, and she doesn't even scrapbook. So that's just one of the many things she does that makes her an amazing sister. So happy birthday. I'm starting out with a heavyweight piece of gessoed white paper, and I'm using some sprays. I use a Dylusions spray, I use some Tattered Angels glimmer mists, and I also use a Prima Color Bloom 2 spray, and they're all shades of green. I'm going to create a background that's kind of a diamond shape. I'm using the packaging technique to put down the color. For this layout, I don't want a big area of solid color. I want there to be some white space in between the areas of green. So I am putting down a lot of color, but I am not pressing too hard on the packaging. I am just pressing it down a little bit and hoping that it'll create a nice effect in the background. I started off with the lightest color of green, and then I used a medium green, and then I'm going to add the darkest color green last. I also add some yellow in there. I wasn't sure if I was going to like the way the yellow looked, and then the sprayer wasn't working on the yellow, so I tried putting some of the yellow in the center where I knew that there would be a good chance that the photo or some of the embellishments would cover it up, but I ended up really liking the yellow, so I used the plastic to spread it around a little bit. Now this is going to be a Halloween themed layout, so my color palette is going to be green, orange, purple, and black, and I thought that I would primarily have the green in the background. So I wanted to create a fairly large area, but I was surprised when I was done with the layout. Even though you could still see the background, a good deal of it did get covered up. So now I'm trying a technique that doesn't end up being that noticeable in the final layout, but I do like doing this. So I took a stencil and I grabbed a wipe and I tried to lift up the color through the stencil. I felt that it was too much. I had lifted up too much of the color. So luckily with mixed media, you could just go right back in and add some more color. And then I thought that I would try the stencil again, but this time I wouldn't wipe as much. I would just give it a little bit of a wipe, and that might be a little bit better. And you could see that it only lifted up some of the color. You can see this spider web stencil a little bit, but like I said, in the final layout, it's not super noticeable. If you've been with me for a while, you might know that I love to put water droplets over the top of a mixed media background and then roll a paper towel over it, and then that lifts up some droplets of color, and I just think that it creates a really cool effect. For this week's Mixed Media Mayhem, we're using stamping, glitter, and vellum. So I am doing a lot of stamping on my background. I use a lot of stamps that I have in my stash that are kind of generic stamps. I use a script stamp. I also used a dot stamp, and now I'm using a stamp set that I was really excited about getting. This is a Stampers Anonymous set. It's called Stitches. As usual, in the description box, there'll be some information about all the products that I use in case you miss anything or in case you're interested in any of the products. There were several different lengths of stitch stamps in this set, so I stamp with each one, or not all of them, but with a number of them a couple of times on the layout. In some cases, I'm pressing down on the whole stamp, and in other cases, I just press down on a small area. I just wanted to create a couple of horizontal lines in this big area of color. Now I'm using that dot stamp, and I'm putting a lot of this stamping around the outside or the border of this area of color. And I'm also going to add black splatters, but the black splatters have a slightly different look than the dot stamp. Now I'm going in with a Hampton Art stamp. It says Halloween, and so I'm stamping that in a number of places. In some cases, I'm dipping this Halloween stamp into the stamp pad each time I use it, and then sometimes I will just stamp again without applying the ink to the stamp. And that just creates some lighter words and some darker words. And now here I go in with the black splatters. I'm splattering them everywhere, but again, my thought is that I like to put them along the outside border of the area of color. I want to have a white background, but I also like to have a couple of little black and colored spatters in those areas, especially the areas closer to the big area of color. I hope that makes sense. Now I'm adding some white splatters as well, and both the black splatters and the white splatters are made with watered down acrylic paints. I like to keep them pre-mixed in little jars right near my desk because I do use them a lot, and then that way I don't have to remix the color each time I want to apply them, and it's worked out really well for me. Probably because I use the splatters on pretty much every layout that I make that has mixed media on it. I'm going back in with some more black splatters. Then I dry the whole background with my heat gun, and I will say that I do dry my background in between layers of paint, and then at the end, before I add the acrylic paint splatters, I do run it through my laminating machine, not to laminate it, just to flatten it out a little bit, and I do find that helpful. So now I'm going to start working on my photo. I added a little piece of vellum behind my photo. It's really pretty. It has some gold stars on it, and I thought that would be cute for this Halloween layout. The paper collection that I'm using is Eerie by Basic Gray. I can't even imagine how old this collection is. It is my all-time favorite Halloween collection. I absolutely love this collection, and I keep looking for it on eBay and some other sites, and I really don't see it anymore. And although I did stock up, I feel like I never have enough of this collection. I use it every year and many times a year for my Halloween layouts. I make a lot of Halloween layouts, and this is the first collection I think of whenever I think of Halloween. For this layout, I'm just using some scraps. I have a black strip of paper going down the center, and even though it looks black, if you look carefully, there are areas of purple in there. And that was one of the wonderful things about Basic Gray. They never really had a true solid. There were always other colors that were mixed into their papers that look like solids when you first looked at them. I have those 3 strips of paper layered up. I use my scissors and I distress the edges of the strips of paper on either side. And for the black strip in the middle, I cut a fishtail on the top and on the bottom as well. So now I'm mounting my picture on those strips of paper. And then I wanted to add some glitter to the layout. Now, I don't have any loose glitter. That's not something that I usually work with. So instead, for the glitter element, I'm using some glitter paste. As I was looking through my stickers, I noticed that there was this sticker, and there used to be bat stickers here, and I just used the part that was left behind, and I used it as a stencil. So I'm using the glitter paste, and I'm using a palette knife, and I'm just putting a little bit of the glitter paste on top of the openings where the stickers used to be. I'm creating bats in the background. At first, I was really worried that this wouldn't work out so well, but it turned out to work just fine. I don't think I'll be able to reuse it, but I think that it was probably something I would have thrown away, so I was glad I gave it a try. On the top right-hand corner, I added what's going to be the title, which is Happy Halloween. And now I am going to use some purple and black sprays to cover these spider web cutouts. I'm not 100% sure, but I believe that these spider webs were the backing on a sticker, and so I peeled them off and used the spider web sticker, and then I really liked these, so I saved them. But I found that as I was spraying them, one side didn't take the spray, because it must have been that shiny side that went against the sticker, and then the other side, though, did take the ink, not as well as a piece of paper would, but it did end up working. So I used a number of different colors of purple, the same ones that I used earlier, and then I added in some black. That's a Dylusions ink spray. And then I started using a paintbrush, and then I decided to spray a little bit, so I'm using a combination of spraying and paintbrush. And then when I was all done and I had dried all of these spider webs with my heat tool, I got out my Bo Bunny glitter paste, and this is a clear glitter paste. It's called Sugar, and I coated each one of the spider webs. I thought that would add a little bit of shine to them, maybe make the color a little deeper and richer, and then I would of course be adding more glitter, which was one of the items that we were tasked to include in this layout. I found this little bit of an ephemera piece in my stash, and it was brownish, like a dark craft color, and I decided that I wanted to make it purple. So I made it purple and it looked a little funky, so I decided to add some black in there too. And then I put that aside to dry. So now I'm going to start assembling everything. I have the 3 spider webs now placed on the layout, one on either side of the photo and then one in the title cluster on the upper right-hand corner. And now I'm going to use some Liquitex Heavy Gel Medium. This is the matte finish, and I'm using that to attach my cluster down. And then I'm also using it to attach the spider webs down to the page. The edges of the spider webs were curling a little bit, so I thought that this would be a good adhesive to hold them down and keep them flat. It tends to stick things down immediately. So I did the same thing for all 3 spider webs, and on the top I had to use a little bit of glue later on in a couple of spots, but for the most part I was able to use the paintbrush and the gel medium and get that cluster to stick down to the page. I found this die cut in my stash, and it must have been from another project. And then I was looking through some ephemera pieces that I had, so I added one that said Sleepy Hollow Jack-o'-lantern. I tucked that in between 2 of the pattern papers, and then I tucked another little piece of ephemera on the upper right-hand side or over the right-hand side of the photo, and then there was a blackbird. I'm never sure if it's a crow or a raven, but regardless of what kind of bird it is, it's a perfect bird for Halloween. So I added a little bit of foam to the back of it, and then I put it on the upper right-hand side of the photo as well. So then I was thinking that I should add a couple more bats. I had them in 2 places, and it would be nice to have them in 3. And so I added a few more bats to the bottom, and this ended up being a little bit of a disaster because I didn't dry them before I continued to work on the layout, and I ended up smearing them or smushing one of the bats, and it caused a whole chain reaction, and I really made a mess in that lower left-hand corner. So that hasn't happened yet. I'm attaching down the piece of ephemera on the bottom, and then I attach down both sides of the fence that has the bird on it, and then when I put the die cut on the layout, I smushed that top bat. So I ended up scraping off both bats. Both of them got kind of messed up, and I stenciled them again. And now what I'm doing is I'm going in and I'm touching up any of the areas that still have a little bit of black on them. And for that, I'm using Dr. P.H. Martin's Pro White, and I find that to be very useful for fixing mistakes like this. I sometimes do have little errors with the mixed media, but I really hate throwing out a background, and certainly at this stage I would have been devastated. So I was really glad that I was able to use that to kind of cover up some of my mistakes. And now I'm going back in and adding a few more splatters just to kind of have that area that I painted white on the bottom left-hand corner blend in with the other areas. And then of course I figured while I'm at it, I might as well add a few more black splatters on the bottom as well of both sides of the layout. Now I'm adding some photo corners. I thought it would be nice to bring the purple and the green close to the photo, so I'm using my EK Success photo corner punch. I punched out 2 green and 2 purple photo corners, and I'm using ATG adhesive to attach them down to the photo. I like to use the ATG period. I love the ATG adhesive, but when I am putting things on the photo, I like to use it because I have used wet adhesive to do things like that, and I feel like I always end up messing up the photo. Once I had the photo corners attached down, I was thinking that I could finish off the layout with a few jewels. So I got some black jewels and I added some medium-sized jewels to either side of the title Happy Halloween, and then also to each of those 4 photo corners. And then I was thinking of putting them on the black banner, but then I thought the black wouldn't show up, so I grabbed some green pearls and I used those instead. I wanted to add something to the right side to balance it off, since the fence on the right side is a little smaller than the one on the left side, so I added a Jolie's pumpkin there. And then I had these metal letters, and I had the letters for boo, so I thought that I would spell out boo and put it on the left-hand side of the photo. And that completes this layout, everybody. Thank you so much for watching. I hope that you enjoyed this video. As always, if you take a look in the description box, you'll find links to all the other scrapbookers who are taking part in Mixed Media Mayhem. I'm so happy to be creating layouts for Mixed Media Mayhem again. I'm going to be creating them the first 2 Fridays of each month. So I'm done for August, but I will start again in September, and I'll have 2 more videos for you then, but I'll have lots of other things for you in the meantime. So I hope to see you soon. I hope you have a great day. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.